Hello, everybody. My name is Carson Fralin. I am the fitness coordinator here at Goodwin House, Alexandria.
And I'm Leslie LaPlace, the fitness manager at Goodwin House, Alexandria.
And welcome to our Sciatica series. This is our Sciatica seminar. This is the seminar on the Piriformis syndrome. So everything that we're going to go over today as it relates to exercises and stretches that you can do to alleviate those sciatic tendencies that manifest from specifically Piriformis syndrome. This is not at all a means to diagnose you. Please consult your physician if you are experiencing any issues either with your hip or any shooting pain. But this is purely as an educational piece and potentially will be used to motivate some people if you are dealing with some of these pains. That what this video can show you is kind of the things that you would do to help remedy that, and it's well within your control. And hopefully that'll get you up to maybe taking a step in the direction of trying to help yourself out. So to start off, we're going to give a little anatomy lesson, but to first define the Piriformis syndrome as it relates to having a sciatic episode. Sciatica is a symptom that can happen from when our sciatic nerve is located on the side of our body here at our lower portion, kind of shoots down and radiates down with pain. It's a sharp, painful sensation. Sometimes it doesn't go all the way down your leg. Sometimes it just stays at the hip. And so we have a little anatomy tool here for you. This is the spine, and on the back side here, you can see the backside of our pelvic bone. And right here, that sciatic nerve will come around. Now, you can imagine some muscles trying to cover up what would be the top part of the upper thigh bone or your femur, where it articulates in that hip socket. There are muscles that cover that. And the sciatic nerve runs on top of that, except for one muscle, the piriformis muscle. It'll actually run under the piriformis muscle. When that muscle gets really tight, it can clamp down on that nerve, and it's through that pressure it can aggravate the nerve, and that's when that pain or that radiating pain can shoot down. Sometimes it stays in that area, that local area. Sometimes it can shoot all the way down the leg here. It's very painful. A lot of people experience these symptoms when they're seated or as they go to sit down. Depending on what's exacerbating the condition here, that where you can put a little bit too much pressure on the nerve here, whether it's related to just the piriformis muscle being too tight, maybe it's really weak. We're going to give some exercises that can kind of help strengthen that area, not just the piriformis muscle itself, but our glutes and the hamstrings, which are also going to manipulate the position and the posture of our pelvic girdle. So enough of the anatomy lesson here. What we're going to do is we're going to cut into some exercises first. So some simple ones that we can do. We can do these standing and sitting. We're going to start off with someone standing here. I'm going to hand you a chair.
Okay.
And the first one we're going to do here is just a pretty straightforward exercise, just to kind of warm up some of those lateral muscles here, especially those glute muscles, is doing a lateral leg raise. Now you can use a wall, you can use a chair, and all you're going to do is abduct the leg out to the side far enough as you can without trying to tilt with your spine. So it's just the leg that's moving, doing anywhere from 10 to 15 or 20 repetitions for each side. Again, we're working those lateral glute muscles here. And this can help. This is a very easy exercise that you can do to help warm up that pelvic girdle here before you start doing your workout program. Now you can also, and when you're doing these here, making sure that when you're abducting the leg out, you're raising that leg out to the side, that you're not turning the toe out. We don't want to externally rotate our leg. We want to make sure that the femur stays in line, so your foot stays pointed forward at the beginning. It stays pointed forward even when it's out to the side. So make sure you're paying attention to that. One way that you can help do that is, if you want to, you can take a chair and you can face a wall, and you can do it in front of the wall, and that can kind of be used as a cue to make sure your foot is still pointed towards the wall, if that kind of helps you there. Now you can also you can add resistance to this exercise by putting an ankle band or tying a bow with our longer bands here around either your ankles or around either the top or bottom portion of your knees. Now, where you tie the band is going to manipulate where the resistance is going to be spread through. So the higher up the thigh it's going to be, the easier it's going to be in terms of your balance, and there should be a little less resistance. If you put it further down, it would be a little bit more of a test on your balance, but it would also increase the resistance as well. But from here, you would do the same thing. The motion is the same. You just abduct the leg out to the side, making sure that you're controlling the motion on the way back in here. This is a great way to help, again, build up the lateral, those lateral glute muscles and strengthening those muscles as well. Now be careful when you do use the band and you're going to tie it. Don't tie a knot. Make sure you tie a bow. Instead, you can break off a fingernail trying to untie a knot from one of these rubber bands. Exactly. So again,
too tight.
So again, you do want to make sure that you can get your leg out as to a comfortable degree. What I would say is you just start off with your thighs close together with that, and then you would tie whatever tension you needed from there. Again, making sure the toe points forward in the same direction throughout the entire range of motion. Pretty good. Now we're going to get into some more compound exercises as we're going to pretty much go through the list here from standing exercises to exercises you can do on the floor. The next one here is an RDL. Now an RDL is a short way to say Romanian Deadlift. And what that movement is it's a hip hinge. So I'm going to flex at my hip forward, bending at the waist, keeping my back straight, and my knees are slightly bent. Now, big detail here is my knees don't continue to bend. My knees are slightly bent. Your feet are shoulder width apart. Your back is straight throughout. And again, you're just hinging forward, keeping your head above the level of your heart with your knees slightly bent. The weight should stay in your heels and in the big toe of your foot. So your weight shouldn't be shifting too far forward or too far back, and you should feel a good stretch in the hamstrings as you come forward. And what you want to do here is a good count for this here or a good tempo is either a 3 or a 4 or a 5 to 1. So like a 3 to 1 would be 3 seconds on the way down, 1 second on the way up. You should feel your hamstrings and your glutes contracting to help pull yourself back into an upright position. Also important is make sure that you do fully extend back up at the top and try to make sure you're still dabbling in a full range of motion here. Now there's a couple ways that we can load the movement here is we can hold dumbbells. Now you can either hold dumbbells in front of your thigh or at the side. That's okay. In either position, you just want to make sure when you go forward that they don't swing away from you. So if you're going to hold them in front, definitely make sure that you're engaging those upper arm muscles, those shoulder muscles, and those lats, and squeezing those dumbbells close to your thighs as you come down. Now, if you are going to load yourself with dumbbells, make sure again that your upper body posture is nice and straight. So your shoulders are rolled back and down and squeezed together, and you'll have to really emphasize keeping that posture the further that you become more parallel to the floor, because it'll become more difficult for you. You can also use a band to add some resistance as well. You run the band underneath both feet. And again, from here, you might have to adjust as you go through a range of motion, but just to make sure you do have tension, but the tension will increase as you extend up. Again, making sure that in between your repetitions, as you stand up, that your knees are rebent as you hinge forward. That they are bent, but they are not bending as you go forward. One way to tell whether or not your knees are continuing to bend is if your knees are bent but don't continue, you will continuously feel a greater and greater stretch with the hamstrings as you come forward. If as you come forward, you don't continue to feel a stretch in the hamstrings, it's because the knees are also bending as you're going down. And instead of hinging, you're actually doing a squat. And we want to think about this as like bending over and picking something off the floor, things of that nature. So again, that's another way that we can use to load our legs here. But another thing that you can do is if you have trouble trying to keep your legs straight when you're doing this hip hinge, you can also run a band around your knees and around your, or either below or just on top of the knee here. Again, tying your band using a bow knot. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of trouble trying to untie it. What you would do is you have your legs together when you tie it. So that way, when you separate your legs to shoulder width apart, what happens here is there's a resistance, and now there's a stimulus to make sure that our external rotators of our hip and those lateral glute muscles are kicking on even from the get-go. So again, if you're doing this, you can either have a mirror in front of you. If you notice that your knees buckle in when you dip forward, having the band on you can also help. And again, if that's the case, don't be afraid to still add some more resistance. You can also do this by adding the dumbbells for resistance and that isometric additional portion of having the band on our legs to keep those knees out. Keeping those hips externally rotated is what's also going to help keep our hips nice and open as well. This is a very foundational exercise that does a lot more than just help build up the strength of the hamstrings and our glutes, but it's also, since it's so eccentrically based, it's going to really focus on the stretching portion of that. There's a lot of ways that you can go about trying to improve the range of motion of muscles by lengthening those fibers through an eccentric contraction. You can think of that in a bicep curl as the lowering phase. That is a great way, spending more time during the eccentric part of the movement. It's a great way to help build up not just the muscle, but to kind of force that range of motion as well. Because a healthy functional muscle should lengthen, not just contract. So another way that we can use an RDL is there's a variation where we do this standing on one leg, and it's just called a single leg RDL. I highly recommend doing this next to the wall or using a chair next to you. Everything is the same, except we're going to add a pretty big balancing component here. So one leg is going to come off the ground. The leg that is on the ground is still, the knee is slightly bent still, just like we would do in a normal RDL. What's important here is that when you do hinge forward, the balance is going to be dictated by the counterweight, which is your back leg. So another way to think about this here, instead of thinking about bending over forward, start the movement off first by kicking that heel back as far as you can and raising it up so far that it forces you to, quote unquote, tilt forward. Because if you lean forward before that leg raises, your weight will shift towards the front of your foot and you'll lose your balance. Having said that, if your back leg stops raising up at any point during the movement, but you continue to bend over forward, your weight will also shift forward and you will lose your balance. So you have to kind of practice a little bit here to get a good idea for the range of motion you have. The flexibility of your hamstrings is going to pretty much dictate the range of motion on top of your balance. But again, that's why you can use that chair. And just really think about leading with that back leg and going slow. Going very slow, and again, pulling yourself back up with control. A good controlled rep is you should be able to pick that foot up, go throughout that full range of motion, and stand all the way back up before having to put the foot back down onto the floor. And it is more than fine for you to put that foot down on the floor in between your reps there, because it is going to challenge those ankle muscles as well because of all the time of retention that we spend going through that movement. So it does take a few seconds to go through a single rep. Now we can also add a weight. Now if we're going to do a dumbbell or a band, we're going to load ourselves in a way that we can still try to load ourselves evenly here. So since our counterweight is going to be the leg coming up off the floor, the dumbbell's going to be on the same side. So if my right leg's on the floor, dumbbell's on the opposite hand. So basically the leg that's coming up, that's the same side that the dumbbell is going to be held on. Again, just like in the dumbbell variation we did with both feet on the ground, you want to make sure that that dumbbell doesn't swing away from you. Still try to keep those shoulder muscles engaged and keep that dumbbell pulled back towards the center line of your body as best you can. We don't want that dumbbell to swing around at all. Now, another thing here, since Leslie is pointed this way, what you'd be able to see here is sometimes we'll see people kind of spin and turn and rotate when they tilt forward. And you can see that by the turning of the torso, or there's a tilting, but the back leg will start to point out and away, and it will be in that, and it'll also externally rotate out. So what we want to do for this is make sure that we're paying attention. So that's all we always suggest, using a mirror that can help you catch that here, is thinking about keeping your stomach pointed in and down towards the ground, not letting your stomach rotate out, but also focusing on your foot pointing forward at the beginning, which means when you're tilted, it should be pointing straight down to the ground and not out. So think about pulling that big toe in to face down towards the ground as you lift the heel back. You can also load yourself using a band. So you want to do the same side again?
Switch sides.
Okay, so again, the load's in the opposite hand of the foot that's on the ground.
This over here. Just in case.
Again, making sure that you have some resistance. There's tension on the band there. You're going to feel that resistance increase when you pull yourself up. Just like before, when you tilt forward, you should feel the hamstring stretching. And then feeling the hamstring and the glute contracting to pull yourself back up into position here. You're good.
Yep, good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Now, there's another RDL that we can do. It's called a staggered RDL. So this is another unilateral movement, but both feet are going to be on the ground here. So we take what's called a staggered stance. What you're going to do is you're going to take a normal, healthy gait length, width, or length of a stride. If you don't know what that is, take 3 steps and pause on the 3rd step. 1, 2, 3. Pause wherever you end up. That would be your healthy gait length from here. Both heels will be on the ground. You want to make sure that you're not tight roping it. It still is a natural hip width orientation, just like you would be when you're walking. The back leg is straight. The front foot, the front knee is bent. And from here, you would hinge forward just like you do in the other exercises. You would feel a very good stretch on the back leg, but also on the front as well, with the front being the one that's doing the majority of the work here. Now, in the staggered stance, what's going to be difficult is trying to maintain a nice squared orientation with the upper body. There's a tendency when we do take this staggered stance that we rotate towards one side or we start to tilt. Think about again, when you're doing these RDLs, since we're going to keep our head above the level of our heart in any case, we can think about using the mirror in front of us and keep your eyes forward. If you had a logo on your chest, you should be able to continuously see that logo even as you come forward there. That'll give you a good eye view of whether or not you're tilting. Best way to do this too is just to go slow. The slower you go, the more control you're going to have. And again, thinking about keeping those shoulders square with the hips. The hips aren't going anywhere. You can also load this same way using the dumbbells. When we're doing any of these exercises, always engaging our core. That's also an important component in keeping our spine in a good position here, is making sure that the core as a whole is tight, those back muscles are engaged, especially if we're going to load the upper body here by holding those dumbbells that we're still not letting them swing away, and we're keeping the shoulders rolled back and down, pinching those shoulder blades together even as you get to the bottom of the movement. Pretty good. Again, you can also load the movement or the staggered RDL with the band. With this one here, you would just put it underneath the forward foot. You would repeat the same thing. Now again, for any of these unilateral movements, whatever you do for one side, you would do for the other. So if you were going to do 10 repetitions, just make sure you switch legs and you do the same amount of work for both sides. So that's going to be predominantly our hip hinging exercises to help strengthen those hamstrings. But another thing that we need to do is we need to focus on strengthening and lengthening our glute muscles. So one of the best ways to do that is by glute bridges. So we're going to use the mat here on the floor. Now you can either get on the floor with the mat, or you can come down to the fitness center and use our therapy table, or if you have a hard surface. So this isn't something that you would ideally do on a bed, because the bed's going to have too much give. It's not going to be very supportive for you. Now when you set up on the floor or on your surface, you're going to back your heels up close to your hips, your hands are on the floor, and your head is relaxed down. Pushing through the heels, but while still keeping the toes grounded, you're going to contract your glutes and the abdomen to lift your hips up. You're going to lift them up as high as you possibly can, holding for a good second, and very slowly you're going to control the descent portion as you lower them back down to the ground. Again, you're pushing through the heels, squeezing the glutes, making sure you're breathing throughout, you're not holding your breath, and that your abdomen is also engaged. Now, you don't have to have your head off the ground or anything like that. Your head is relaxed. Also, your feet are going to be hip width apart, and making sure that your knees stay in line in the same orientation as your hip and your heels are here. So your knees don't need to be winging out, and your knees shouldn't be buckling in either. Now, if you want to load this movement here, you can use dumbbells where you hold them at the top of your thigh or close up towards the knee, on top of the leg, or at the bottom on your hips, whatever is more comfortable for you. And you do the same thing again. This is just loading those muscles here, really loading the glutes. Now you can do this for an individual rep count, or you can start to do isometrics or a combination of the two. So if we were just going to tell you to do 10 reps, nothing special, we'd have you hold the contraction at the top for a good second, then you slowly lower. Or we can do an isometric where you hold the repetition for a period of time for the whole set, whether that be 20 seconds to a minute. Or you can do a combination of the two to kind of mix that up. Instead of just holding in position there, you can get the benefit of that eccentric and concentric contraction stimulus and hold each rep for 5 to 10 seconds, slowly lowering and then coming back up again. How you perform the rep is very important as well, and can give you some different benefits. You can also load yourself using a band where you lay the band across you, almost kind of like a seatbelt, with your hands planted firmly down. And again, it's the same thing here. You'll also notice that your back muscles are going to engage a little bit as well too here. What's important is that we are still engaging our core, pushing through the heels. That's a very good way of making sure that our heels don't come off the floor. You good? Now, again, if you wanted to stimulate some more lateral glute movement here, you can tie the band around your knees, either just below or just above the knee. And what that'll do, again, make sure your knees are together when you do this, and tie it with no slack, is this is now going to, just like we did with the RDL where you were standing tied, this is going to put a bigger emphasis on making sure that your knees stay out in a good alignment here. So again, if you have problems, especially when you squat or you're bending over with your knees kind of bending in, or you have some knee valgus that occurs, this is a great way to help strengthen those lateral glute muscles there. It's going to help that out. And it's the same thing here. You'd still bring your hips up, squeezing the core, contracting those glutes, keeping those knees apart. That's another way that we can isometrically work those muscles even while those glutes still go through an eccentric and a concentric contraction. Again, if you're going to use a band that you're tied, make sure to tie it in a bow knot so you can easily pull it open when you're done. Now, if you want to work a little bit more on one side versus the other, some unilateral bit here, we can do a single leg glute bridge, where either you have the leg straight up or any portion where the foot is off the floor, still making sure that your hips come up evenly, but really having to focus solely on that one side. Now, again, trying to avoid tilting and turning, things like that. You may also notice that your hips don't rise as high. That's okay. And you also might notice that there might be some difference from one side to the other. Again, that's okay. As time goes on with these exercises and with the stretches that we'll give you, ideally that disparity will become less and less. Not too bad. And again, whatever you do for one side, you would do for the other, and you can perform those reps exactly how you would do any of the others, whether it was holding one rep count for a second, holding each for a period of time, or combining the combination of the two. You can load this exercise the exact same way using the band or the dumbbells. It's up to you. It might be easier to do a band in this situation because you have one leg up. Another simple way of doing this movement here, because it can seem a little odd when you get in position, is just think about reaching that foot up straight towards the ceiling. And again, while you have all this going on, don't forget to make sure you're breathing. Just like that. All right. Now, aside from strengthening those glutes and those hamstrings, we also want to make sure that we are strengthening those core muscles as well. So another bit of exercises that we can do while we're already on the floor is some supine exercises. Supine exercises are exercises where I'm on my back, and we can do some hollowing exercises, some exercises that are going to affect our posture as well. So in a hollow, what I can demonstrate standing up, probably a little bit better if you can see me, is when I hollow, I contract my glutes, my pelvis posteriorly tilts backwards, and my spine rounds on the back side. Simply because I'm contracting the abdomen and I'm pulling that sternum down towards my pelvis, and that pelvis up towards my sternum. It becomes nice and round here. Now on the floor, if I were to run my hand under Leslie's back and there would be a space there, that's because there's an arch that's right there. During a hollow movement, I would not be able to get my hand underneath her lower back because there would be no space there. You'll actually feel your lower back push down to the floor. You might even feel that lower back get a good stretch as well, especially if that lower back is really tight and you do a lot of arching throughout your day. So again, you want to think about contracting the glutes, contracting the abdomen, and practice making sure that you can breathe while you're going through those contractions. So you're going to hold all of these isometrically. Now, you can do a couple where either you're just lying on the ground in this position here, like you were getting ready to do a glute bridge, or you can do a tuck, what's called a tuck hold, where you tuck your knees towards your chest. You pull your knees up towards your chest, and in this hollow position, you pull your shoulders, you lift your shoulder blades off the ground, thinking about pulling the tailbone off the floor by contracting those stomach muscles here, squeezing those knees towards your chest, pulling that chest up, and just hollowing and breathing in this position here. So this is a good hollow position. Leslie's back is pushed firmly into the floor. Now, if you can hold this contraction for a pretty good amount of time, I'd say if you can hold that for a good 20 seconds, then you can lower the time, hold the position, and let go of your legs with your hands, and you can just hold the position with your arms out to the side. That'll make it a little bit more difficult. Same thing said is you can extend your legs straight up and your arms straight up towards the ceiling. This is going to load the abdomen to an even greater extent here. Again, making sure that lower back's pushing down to the ground. And even further, if that's not too bad for you, you can slowly bring the arms out the legs out at the same time, and that will increase the resistance as well. Go ahead and rest here. Now, those are some isometric exercises that you can do. You can also practice eccentric and concentrically, just going from a position of rest into the hollow and then relax out of it again in a controlled manner. Just like that. And you can do those for repetitions. Whether it's going into a tuck position or you're going into a position where your arms and legs are all the way up, extending them all the way back out, and just kind of moving with control and keeping a good eye and a good mind on whether or not that lower back is staying down to the ground. Now you're training those muscles provided that lower back isn't starting to arch. So if you feel as if while you're trying to challenge yourself, that lower back starts to arch, back off a little bit, maybe take a little bit of a rest to make sure that you are recovering so you can do the work to reinforce the posture that we're trying to emulate here, where that lower back isn't arched, but it's nice and rounded here, and make sure that those stomach muscles are working pretty well. Now, those are just a few different exercises that you can do to help strengthen those glutes, those hamstrings, and abdomen. But since we're all warm now, let's go through some exercises or some stretches that we can do statically that you would perform at the end now that we're all warm. So since we're already on the floor, we're going to do just a very traditional, simple, straight leg, sitting up, bent over stretch, where your legs are out in front of you, feet are pointed, or your toes are pointed back to you. You're going to run your hands underneath your leg and as far up or far down the leg as you can, pulling your shoulders towards your knees and focusing on relaxing everything but your grip here and breathing throughout. You should feel a good stretch. And through a combination of the hamstrings mostly, or even the back. Depends on where you're tight. If you have a lot of flexibility in your hamstrings, but your back is pretty tight, you'll probably feel this more in the back here. Again, for our static stretches, you want to hold that for a good period of time to mild discomfort. So mild discomfort would not be pain, but again, it wouldn't necessarily be the most comfortable position for you either. Just to make sure that the muscle is getting an adequate stretch. Holding it anywhere from 20 seconds, even as long as 60 seconds if you can. Again, you can repeat that 1 or 2 times. To kind of isolate one side or the other, we can do what's called a figure 4, where you bring one leg into, you're bringing that foot close to the part of that inner part of the thigh. And from here, you can reach down towards the straight leg, and you'll feel an increase tension and stretch on the leg that is straight that you're bending over towards. You might also even feel a stretch on the opposite side of that lower back of the leg that is bent. Now, if that's very tight, that QL muscle, that quadratus laborum muscle is really tight, you can even give yourself a further assist by putting some weight on the knee and even pushing yourself away, your torso away from that knee. And that can help increase the stretch in that muscle right here. Now, if you feel a little too much pressure either on the lateral part of your knee in this position, that's okay. It's very easy to fix here, either by a combination of moving your foot up or down your leg, or even out to the side. You're going to change where you actually feel this stretch, and it can actually take a little stress off the knee if you do experience a little stress with the foot being all the way back. Again, you might feel this a little bit more on the outside of the hip, and you might even change where you feel this in your back if you're feeling a lot in your back as well. Again, whatever you do for one side, you would do for the other. Same thing, either going through that straight leg, going onto the straight leg side, or even trying to emphasize stretching out the lateral part of that lower back by pushing down on the knee that is bent. And you might notice that one side is going to be tighter than the other. That's okay. It's no problem. It's very common. You might learn a little bit more about your habits from that feedback there. But ideally, as time goes on, that won't get worse. Otherwise, you would use that as a cue to reassess what it is that you're doing, and possibly to make an adjustment to some of these exercises. Now, another thing that we can do here is we can do some glute stretches as well, where we're going to sit in a position where we're kind of contorted onto our side with our leg crossed over, holding the top portion here. So you would turn around. Let me get this out your way. You should be pretty good here, where you're gonna turn. There you go. And if you can, grab that knee and turn away from the leg that is straight on the ground. It's gonna help to make sure that the back hand that is down on the ground there is in a good position to help you turn. You should feel this all throughout your back, which ideally will also feel this a little bit in the outside portion of our thigh or even in the glute. Now, if this position is a little laborious for you to get into, or it just seems like a little too much work just has to be done just to maintain the position, you can do something similar to this while lying on your back and simply turning your legs over with one leg on top. So you turn towards your side, you turn your hips towards the side a little bit, and your top knee would come over towards the ground, and you would use that hand that's on top to help pull it up and down and over towards the floor, and you'll get a similar stretch here throughout the lower back side and on the outside of the hip here, a little bit of the glute. This might be a little bit easier for you, so you don't have to work as much since you get to lay down when you do this one. Since you're already lying down, we can also do another stretch for the glutes as well, where you kind of get up in a setup where you're going to do a glute bridge, and then you cross your leg over kind of like a gentleman. So you would cross your leg over like a gentleman so the ankle is on top of the knee. You use this bottom guy here, that bottom foot, to kind of scoot back. There you go. You pull it back towards you. Use your hands to pull the leg up to you. And pulling that thigh up towards your chest here. Now, what will happen here as well is if you're not feeling too much with this here, you can put the foot back on the floor, stay in that position, and instead hold the ankle that's crossed over on top of the knee, pulling it towards you as you push the knee with the other hand away from you. And you'll feel this on the sides of the hip and lower back as well, depending on where you're tight. Again, you can do an assisted stretch here with this one if it helps. If you have trouble trying to interlock those hands, or are you lacking a little bit of grip strength here, you can use a band to kind of help as well. Or a yoga strap is also useful too. As long as you don't feel like it's cutting into you too bad. And again, using this where your leg is up, leveling out your tibia horizontally by pulling the ankle towards you a little bit, pushing the knee away from you. Pretty good. Now let's say you don't want to get on the ground and you don't want to get on the floor. There's a couple of stretches that we can do on the chair that we just were doing on the ground. Starting off with some of the hamstring single leg stretches here, where you have a single leg out in front of you with the heel on the ground, toes pointed up to you, and you're reaching down the leg, bending over at the hip. Make sure you get a good grasp so that way you can pull and relax. Again, just like anything else when we're doing our breathing or we're doing our stretching, is that we are breathing, we're trying to relax. We don't want to be tense when we're stretching. And again, what you do for one side, you do for the other. You can also get a little bit of stretch on the opposite side by trying to reach over with the opposite arm. So if your left foot was out, you reach over with the right onto the opposite side of that foot, and it'll force you to twist a little bit there as well. Be careful when you do come out of this position. Make sure you're moving slowly. Again, we can also do that cross-legged stretch where we cross the leg over with the ankle on top of the knee. Again, if you're not feeling too much here, it's okay. Put that elbow on the knee that's bent and just kind of lean your upper body weight towards it, and it'll help level out that lower leg bone here with the floor, nice and parallel. Now, let's say that you can't get your leg up onto your lap. You still have that leg out. Cross the other one over with the ankle on top. And again, from here, you can just push the knee down. Or you can even reach for the ankle with the other hand and pull it up to where you can comfortably, still pushing the knee away from you and down towards the floor. And that'll still give you a similar stretch here on the outside of the hip, even on the top, and a little bit on the glute as well. Good. Did you have any stretches you wanted to add in here at all?
No, that's good.
Okay, so again, this is just a nice little library of exercises that you can use if you do experience some sciatic episodes that do result from a tight piriformis muscle. Again, that's what these exercises and these stretches are supposed to help address. This is also kind of a part of what that therapy would be like if that's what you were diagnosed with as well. And as you can see, this is definitely something that's manageable, and it can help benefit you in the long-term run as well, especially if you do already experience some of these symptoms. And if you do, consult with your doctor and see if that's what's going on. We always want to make sure that we're listening to our body. Again, if we're ever doing any of those exercises that we just listed, anywhere in terms of 2 to 4 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions is good, as well as some of the isometric variations that we showed you as well, i.e. some of the glute bridge exercises. If you have any questions about any of these exercises or stretches, please contact me or Leslie at the fitness center. Come down, come in. We're always here waiting to help use everybody here or to answer any of your questions. We are a resource for you. We want you to feel comfortable coming down and asking us anything. Again, thank you again for tuning in and for stopping by. We'll see you next time.